This is the Power 5 with Kali, Warren Shaw.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Power 5, Kali, Warren Shaw of the Baseline NBA podcast, breaking down the top 5 teams in the association. It's hot and heavy, and it's a brand new year. 2017 is in the mix, and these teams are rolling hard like Amari Hardwick. You know, we got to discuss these guys, man. So I'm going to roll out the red carpet for my right-hand man, my brother from another mother, repping for www.shawsports.net, Big Kahuna PNC, Mr. Warren Shaw, repping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Holla back at me, Mr. Shaw. Welcome back, man. 2017 is in full effect.
Full effect, homie, and salute to you and all the fans and listeners of NBA Baseline. Happy New Year. Hope you enjoyed our first show that we actually dropped for the 2017 New Year. Great stuff with our boy Kevin Ray Houston, Leo Biaz from Cowbell Kingdom, man. I mean, just an amazing show. But got some other business to discuss here today on the Power 5. Lots of news and notes around the NBA in addition to the top 5 teams in the league, bro.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't emphasize more and echo those sentiments that you mentioned, Shaw, to our boy Kevin Refuse from the Driving Dish and Leo Biaz from Cowbell Kingdom. We've actually got a lot of positive responses from our first show dropping in 2017, discussing some really great topics, New Year's resolutions, and also our man Leo Biaz, who was right in the heart of it, man. Like Conor McGregor, he was ready to knock somebody out. And it just so happens that he gave us the full scoop of everything that was happening with Boogie Cousins, the Sacramento Kings. So we encourage everybody to check out the Baseline NBA podcast, available on all the major platforms, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Microsoft TuneIn, Player FM, Google Music. The same thing here with the Power 5 as you tune in and listen to our show. This is where we're at. You can find us on all of these channels. Be sure to download and show us some love. Give us some ratings. That's what we need for us to proceed, as the Roots will say. Big shout outs to our peoples, Freeman and Fox, who simulcast us, the Sports Brothers Network. Be sure to check those guys out. And also big shout out to our peoples out there from 16 Wins a Ring, new website that's out, Adam Joseph and Company. Those guys are doing big things. So be sure to get the latest of the greatest NBA content over at 16 Wins a Ring. All right, Shaw, let's get right into it. You know how we roll when we talk about the Power 5. We always got to kind of fixate ourselves, kind of position ourselves right before we give our listings of who are the top 5 teams in the NBA. And this new little seg we like to call it Stuntin and Frontin. There are players and teams out there that are trying to make some serious moves to enable themselves, to put themselves in the discussion of these power teams that we talk about in the NBA. And some of them are kind of like Pharrell, man, hidden figures a little bit. They be fronting. They acting like they want to do something, but they really ain't doing nothing. So first up, Shaw, as we talk about stunting and fronting, how about Paul Milsap and the Atlanta Hawks? Wasn't it not long ago that we were talking about this team as a possible top 5? They were in our Power 5 a few weeks ago. We mentioned how quickly they've fallen off the face of the earth. And now all of a sudden, amidst certain speculation and rumors, they are trying to resurge themselves back into the conversation.
Well, it's funny for me because like this is a team that has been so good over the recent years, especially since Coach Buttercup gotten over there, and now they had that little swoon where they lost like 7 of 9 games or something ridiculous.
It was a horrible stretch. Stretch.
And like I said, fell way out of our Power 5, out of anybody's Power 5, and was really playing like a bottom third team in the NBA. Dwight Howard got hurt for a little bit, and now he's back. And Paul Millsap has really kind of led this charge. Schroeder's played a little bit better as well, too. And this team seems to be taking another turn towards the positive and another upswing. But amidst all of that, here come the rumors about, should this Hawks team, break things up. And this is something that I think a lot of teams go through. Are you good enough to really compete? Are you one of the elite teams in the NBA? And I think the hard question the Atlanta Hawks have asked themselves is that they're not. So now did they start liquidating some of their assets, and one of those major assets being Paul Millsap, who has an opt-out, a player option this summer, which rumors are going back and forth whether or not he's going to do that, or whether he's already said that he's going to do that. Chances are why wouldn't he? There's so much money to be made in the summer right now. Why would he not opt out? And if that's the case, Atlanta has to at least start to listen to offers from Milsap, and that's one of the big rumors we're talking about right now. But it's just not Milsap. It's Cephalosha, it's Kyle Korver, it's Tiago Splitter. They're looking at what they can do potentially to set this team up for the future.
Yeah, here's my problem with this, and I thought maybe the Atlanta Hawks, and I want to kind of separate the situation that's going on right now with Atlanta Hawk fans' perception that, or not even the perception, I think the NBA's perception that the Atlanta Hawk fan base is the worst fan base in the NBA. I think over the last few years, the Atlanta Hawk fan base, there has been a resurgence. I know I've mentioned that word, a moment ago, but there's been a resurgence of Atlanta Hawk fans and their belief that this is a good basketball team. Let's not get crazy and start talking about this Atlanta Hawks team being like, the teams that they had back when they had Hawford and Joe Johnson and Josh Smith. But this is still a good basketball team. And they're 13-7 in the Eastern Conference. I understand, how quickly they have fallen off. I don't think that there was any realistic expectations that they're going to be able to hang with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But even if they gave themselves a puncher's chance in the playoffs, and they still do, they're second in the division. It's a very tight Southeast division that they're playing in. I'm just wondering, is it too quick to start liquidating the assets already if you weren't going to go all out once you knew you weren't going to keep Al Horford? If this is still a competitive basketball team and you brought Dwight Howard, why not continue to roll the dice for this team at least through this season before you start kind of emphasizing those sentiments about trying to crash the team and break up the party?
Well, I think it's not so much that they are looking to do that just yet. They're just doing due diligence, as they say. So it's interesting when these rumors come out because there's obviously a very stark difference from being on the block per se and listening to offers. And I think there's even things where there's certain guys, okay, it's always a hell no, you'll never get this guy from us. But they're listening. Hey, if you call, we'll listen. It's going to take a lot, especially for a guy like Milsap to come away. And I think it's more so because of where he's at in his contract situation. Do they want to continue to build around him and Dwight Howard together, or do they need some other type of more dynamic wing player that they can maybe get in a trade? Because they can get a lot from Milsap right now. There's anybody who trades for him is going to have to give up pretty much the farm, if you will, if they want to get him. So Atlanta's in a situation where they're not pressed to do anything. They can very much play this string out, if you will, and see where the rest of the season takes them. But they do have some guys that can be of interest to other teams out there, especially when you talk about Milsap and even a guy like Kyle Korver, who hasn't really been the shooter that we wanted him to be over the last couple of seasons, really taking a downturn, if you will. But maybe in another situation, another scheme, maybe he gets going. He's coming off the books next year. Chris Humphries is another guy, Cephalosha, a defender. So all those guys are players that they're not going to have next year anyway. So they're trying to see what they can get for them potentially if they needed to make a move.
It's interesting to me, Shaw, because when you think about this Atlanta Hawks team, as far as the speculations and the rumors, even ESPN.com is polling out the questions on whether or not Paul Millsap should be traded. And I guess that would make sense because Paul Millsap by far is your best veteran-laden player in comparison to the rest of the talent in the roster that you have. Like, there's no way that I think you should give up Kent Bazemore. I think he's a solid player and definitely one of the mainstays that Atlanta Hawk fans have grown to feel a level of admiration for. People are catching on to Dennis Schroeder. Do you think that it's time for Tim Hardaway Jr. to really start, emerge like Budenholzer, to really start emerging some confidence in playing Tim Hardaway Jr. a heck of a lot more and with more confidence than amidst these speculations about possibly moving someone like a Paul Millsap if this Atlanta Hawks team does not live up to their expectations?
Well, I think Hardaway should get minutes now more so than Kyle Korver should. I mean, Korver's 35, and I said he just has been playing very good basketball the last two seasons, if you will. Flashes maybe a little bit this year where he seemed like he might have been back, but I think Hardaway can very easily come and take that job if Coach Bud is willing to let that happen. So it's not even so much a matter of, is Millsap and Hardaway's way. I think it's more Korver, who they are just hell-bent on giving minutes to on a regular basis. So I think Hardaway could definitely get some minutes there, and then Cephalosha comes in from a defensive standpoint. But, it's hard to say that would you build around Tim Hardaway. I don't think it's anything that drastic, but you definitely would want to maybe give him some more minutes. So you can actually exactly what you see, so you can find out exactly what you have in him as well, too, because his contract comes off the books at the end of this year. So is he somebody that you're going to want to try to have on this roster as a piece? Can he be like a Kentavious Caldwell-Pope type guard, if you will, who can really score, maybe play some defense? Hardaway hasn't been, noticed for his defense over the years, but can he get to be a guy who's a reliable, 2 and 3 guard in this NBA and be an NBA starter?
All right, well, let's go ahead and move things along to who's fronting. Man, just when I had high hopes for Rajon Rondo, bro, just when I had hopes for Rondo and his stint with the Chicago Bulls, it hasn't even been half of an NBA season, and already Rondo is getting bullish with the organization, to kind of put it kindly, man. It's amazing. This is a basketball team who, out the gate, really surprised a lot of us. Even had you stumped, Shaw. Even you had you kind of swallowing a little bit of humble pie, you know? And then all of a sudden, this team has come back down to earth. They've gone through a few rough patches, but that's not even scratching the surface in comparison to the recent speculations that have been going on that Rondo is ready to raise holy hell up in Chicago if things don't start changing with him, Hoiberg, and the dynamic of this basketball team.
There's always more to the story than the media can even report until, I guess, maybe something happens with the player and he's out of the situation one way or the other. But he fell out of favor with Hoiberg really quickly. The Bulls went on, I think it was a 4 or 5 game losing streak or whatever it was, and Rondo just was playing piss poor. He just wasn't getting it done. And I think he's a guy, he came out and said that he expected to be able to have more the decision-making responsibilities on the court and calling plays, and Hoiberg has since taken that away from him. And that makes Rondo very unhappy. He wants to be able to play call out there as a quarterback and the point guard on the court. And if he's not getting his way in that way, he starts to pout and doesn't play the way that he's very, very capable of, and doesn't play defense, and just is not giving you anything outside of his ability to pass. So if that's happening, of course he's going to fall out of favor. But to me, what's shocking about it is that not only is he no longer starting, but now he's no longer in the rotation. And I just, that always boggles me. How do you go from a guy who you're ready to deploy out there, 28 to 34 minutes a night, to like, you know what, you get zipped, you get nada. And that goes to show you it's not even really so much even about his play, it's about how he's affecting the chemistry and what his relationship is with Hoiberg.
It makes me think about the impact that the Michael Carter Williams trade really had after, they signed Rondo. So I get it. And you made a trade to get Jerry Grant. So let's not act like you just didn't have guards, right? If Rondo goes down, you have plenty of guards to supplement and to fill in the role. You even have Isaiah Cannon, who's really more of a 2 guard, but shoots kind of like a center, but at least he could play the point guard and the 2 guard position if need be. So essentially you have 3 point guards to your disposal. And I think that even more so made Rondo really skeptical about what was going on and where this thing is kind of playing itself out. And I kind of feel bad a little bit for Rondo, albeit I don't particularly care for his attitude. But I will say that now because of this is going to affect Dwayne Wade. This is going to affect Jimmy Butler. Because the whole premise was these 3 guys, Rondo, Butler, and Wade, are supposed to help this basketball team put themselves back in a position where they're going to be playoff contending type, like a playoff contending type of team.
Yeah, and that's, you bring up those 2 names, Wade and Butler. I really haven't heard, and maybe I haven't done enough research or digging, if you will, to find out what's their take on the situation, because Wade was very vocal, Butler was very vocal about wanting Rondo to be there and what that trio could potentially do. And what I said, about the Chicago Bulls team is like, if they're able to, bypass some of their issues with shooting and get into the playoffs, this is a veteran-laden team that could cause anybody a problem just because of their veteran leadership with Rondo and Wade and their sheer will to win, and Butler being obviously an emerging superstar within the league. I haven't heard them say or really come to Rondo's aid or defense one way or the other, and it's, it's kind of, I want to say it's unlike Wade, because Wade will definitely stick up for his teammates, and I think he'll stick up for them when they're right. And that would give some indication that maybe Rondo isn't right in this situation. Whatever he's doing is having a negative impact on this team and roster. And we'll see if he ends up staying. I know he had his meeting with, Foreman and Paxson and all those guys, and we'll see what's going to come of it. But if he's not going to get any minutes at all, this is very reminiscent of the situation in Dallas. And they'll be lucky if they can find a trade partner. Otherwise, they might have to just waive him flat out or do the stretch provision or something like that, because they can't have this type of negativity around the roster.
Man, we're going to have to keep an eye on what's happening right here in Chicago, because it's clearly the writing's on the wall. There is beef between Rondo and Hoiberg. Will there be beef between Rondo and the Bulls organization? And will that mean ramifications where Rondo once again gets mavericked? So we definitely need to keep our eye on that. And that's who's been stunting and who's been fronting on the Power 5. Speaking of the Power 5, it's about that time for us to break down the top 5 teams in the NBA. Are you ready to get it in, Mr. Shaw?
Absolutely, man.
Number 5.
All right. At number 5, the Toronto Raptors. What more can be said? This team continues to move forward even as we record this show. 23-10, impressive record with DeMar DeRozan, D-Ro doing the NBA dirty, and also with Kyle Lowry as his partner in crime. I mean, this is arguably one of the better teams in the NBA, but can they get better, Shaw? Can you see them being a team that can catapult themselves another notch up moving forward?
Like I say it every week, they do all this without having a power forward. So they've been linked to Paul Millsap, who we talked about a little bit earlier. What would they be able to give up? It would cost them a bench player like Terrence Ross, probably Patterson, and a first-round pick, maybe even something more than that, too, to get a guy like Millsap on this roster. But Lowry and DeRozan just hold it down. Those two guys, I mean, what a performance they had a couple nights ago with, first I think it was the Lakers. Lowry has 40-something, DeRozan has 30, and they're shooting the 3-ball and just raining from all angles on the court. Valanciunas chipping in with his double-doubles as well too. So I love this team, and in terms of they really seem to defy all odds, if you will. And I've counted them out before, and I'm going to learn just not to do it again. Raptors are here to stay. They're going to be probably in the top 5 conversation throughout the entire NBA season.
Well, my man's got another man crush. Here we go.
But all that, but, they're definitely doing their thing.
All right, the number 4 team in the NBA, Shaw. How about that? The Houston Rockets. They stay, they maintain, and they are exceeding expectations. Mike D'Antoni, James Harden, MVP candidate, probably MVP frontrunner. They're doing it lovely in the Western Conference.
Yeah, coming off that, 50, 15, and 15, plus numbers and triple-double. First time any NBA players have ever done that. And just think about it. At this stage of the NBA's career, for somebody to be doing something that, those types of numbers, nobody's ever done it before. That just goes to show you how good James Harden has been and just how focused he is in within this system. And they play acceptable defense against the middle attack there. Offense just where they're killing people, shooting 3-ball. It's extremely, extremely well. Doing it with Beverly, without Beverly. He's out right now on the shelf and maybe out, the rest of this week. So it's just amazing to me that they're being able to plug and play. Same thing. Capella's out as well. Montrezl Harrell's come in and done his thing. Nene has come in there and done his thing. This team just keeps on chugging along. Just one of the better offenses that we've seen in a long time. And
listen, Shaw, this to me, we had sat here before we even jumped on this show and we were talking about it. I even had the Rockets maybe a step higher over the team that we now have at the number 3 position.
Number 3.
The San Antonio Spurs. And not to take anything from what happened when these two guys met each other, earlier this season, but this is a likelihood. The Spurs still moving along, very steady as she goes at the number 3 spot. Impressive record in December at 12-2. Greg Popovich have those boys on there. But the Houston Rockets, man, a dangerous basketball team. But what can be more said about the San Antonio Spurs, man? Still one of the best teams that is going in the NBA.
Yeah, and I think the key to this, too, is that Tony Parker's starting to come out of his funk a little bit, playing a little bit better at the point guard position. I wouldn't say he's the old Tony Parker by any stretch of the imagination, but you're definitely seeing some flashes and some spurts of a guy who's more engaged and is not as injury-prone as he has been. And then the other thing, too, I think is key. There's been a lot of reports about LaMarcus Aldridge in terms of his touches and how Tony Parker, or even Greg Popovich, has forced him to say, hey, man, shoot the ball. You have to score. So those early games when he was getting 12-5 and, 16-4 and things like that, those seem to really be behind him. He's back into where he should be in the 20-10 type range on a regular basis. That's the thing that I didn't understand, too. Why his scoring, although not always prolific, why that always affected his rebounding. He seems to just be more engaged when he's getting more touches on both sides of the basketball. And if that's what's going to happen, that's going to take some pressure off Kawhi on a regular basis. So we talk about Pau Gasol every time we mention this team as well, too, and what they've been able to do. But that bench is still very, very consistent. Greg Dedmon, Jonathan Simmons, all those guys come off the bench and do what they're supposed to do in the Popovich late in the system. That's why the Spurs team is so consistent and still why my top 3 teams in Power 5.
Number 2.
All right, in at number 2. Oh, yes, there's been a change in the rankings. The number 2 team this time in our Power 5, the Golden State Warriors. Shaw, you know as well as I do, this Golden State Warriors team, they really should be a number 1 team. But the one thing that's going to probably be their Achilles heel is the fact that they are not playing the kind of defense that I think is going to be sustainable for them to make themselves championship worthy. And that to me is probably the biggest indictment right now. Not that they can't score the basketball. They can drop 140 in their sleep. But to me, the one thing that stands out is they've not improved the defense to a level, especially against teams that are 500 and below. They've not shown a propensity to lock those teams down and to really show that they can improve and be disciplined in their defensive efforts as well as balance their offensive game.
Yeah, it's tough with that because I think they do these things in spurts. And so this is maybe a situation where statistics lie because they're second in defensive rating, they're second in offensive rating. So they're doing everything statistically right. But when you see them, as I think you mentioned off air, give up 120, 130 points to the Denver Nuggets, in Golden State, you kind of wonder, well, what's happening? Why aren't you able to lock this down? And sometimes, yes, pace and all those things play a part in the amount of actual points you give up. So you really need to go by points per 100 possessions and things of that nature. But this Warriors team, they let the foot off the gas here and there. And I think Steph Curry, we had his little bout where maybe you were seeing him to be a little bit unhappy. And Kerr has pretty much said, listen, this is Durant's team, without really saying it in that exact same manner. And that's where you kind of wonder what's going on with Golden State sometimes. But hey, amongst this turmoil, they're still 30-5, obviously number one in the Western Conference, and it'd still be my number one team in the Power 5. But like I said, relenting with their defense a little bit, we knocked them down a notch.
Number one.
And in at number one, Shaw, the best team so far in our Power 5, the top dog, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And look, I'm not saying that the Cleveland Cavaliers, it's really a close call. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they did beat the Golden State Warriors, but for the most part, and we've talked about this, off the air, is that the Golden State Warriors were the better basketball team in that game. And to me, it lends to the idea of why I don't think that the Golden State Warriors should be the number one team at this point, because the one thing that they didn't do was stop the best players that the Cleveland Cavaliers have. And that just makes me wonder, when the time comes, when the game is on the line, to me, it looks like the Cleveland Cavaliers roster, their lineup, can stop the best players for the Golden State Warriors, but at times, can the Golden State Warriors step up and stop the Cleveland Cavaliers' best players? To me, that was my overall assessment of why I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are considered the best team, because they are playing much better defense right now than the Golden State Warriors, but it's a toss-up either way.
Yeah, it's definitely a toss-up. Why I can even ride with this a little bit too is I think Cleveland is continuing to do it with some guys that are hurt. And for me, that's always a sign of an amazing team when you can still win. And obviously having LeBron James never hurts. But you're seeing some of their guys develop now and really maybe to be able to contribute down the line as a result of some of the experiences they're getting here in the early part of the season. JR is out for a while. Kyrie's now been bothered with a leg injury. Kevin Love has been bothered with an injury as well too, and he's in and out of the lineup. And LeBron has been pretty much the lone consistent. Pretty much played every game except for a couple games of rest here. And that is why I'm like, wow, they're getting guys like Kate Felder to come in now and really produce, and they're getting Liggins to come in there, DeAndre Liggins to come in there and produce and play his minutes. Richard Jefferson with the fountain of youth, dunking on people and doing what he needs to do. Jordan McRae.
At age 95, by the way. At age 95.
Yeah, as LeBron said, it doesn't make any sense. So for me, that's why I can definitely rock with this, because they, as a cohesive unit, basically 1 to 15, really seem to be able to kind of plug and play. I like that term a lot, especially for this team, because there's no let up despite who's going out there off the floor. I think Golden State, they've been pretty much healthy, deploying the same lineup out there on a regular basis. Cleveland here is getting a chance to develop some of their bench guys, their 9th, 10th, 11th guys, and getting them to play at an acceptable level.
All right, well, there you have it. The top 5 teams, the Power 5 for us here at the Baseline NBA podcast. Number 5 Raptors, 4 Rockets, 3 Spurs, 2 Warriors, and the number 1 team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Shaw, great segment, great show, basically putting this all together. And look, we want people to tell us why they think that the Golden State Warriors or the San Antonio Spurs or the Cleveland Cavaliers or even the Houston Rockets or Spurs, Raptors, your Boston Celtics, whomever. Who do you think should be your Power 5? We want to hear from you. Be sure to get at us here at the Baseline on our Twitter handle at NBA Baseline. Also available on the Instagram, Shaw. I'm telling you, man, I like the fact that we're shaking things up because the discussion has to be had. They can't be number one all of the time.
I hear you on that, and I think it's fun, to have a conversation and just understanding, how teams are playing when we're discussing them. Do I still think Golden State's the best team in the NBA? Do I still think they're probably going to win the NBA championship? Yes, but I still think they're going to meet the Golden State Warriors. They're going to meet the Cleveland Cavaliers, and have all the holy hell they can handle when it comes to that matchup. So those two teams are definitely going to be the most consistent throughout the entire season. But when they have their lapses, and Golden State has had their lapses, you have to recognize that and make a little change here in our Power 5 rankings.
Most definitely. So for the Baseline, Cali, Warren Shaw, this was the Power 5. Be sure to check us out. Be sure to catch us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the major platforms. We want to hear from you. Make sure that you tune in, chime in, give us a subscription, give us a rating. Whatever you feel like, give it to us. We'll definitely give it to you back. For the Power 5, Cali, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. And we'll catch up with you next time.